Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum, Shani. Welcome. Happy to have you here. Nahid, Auntie. Happy to have you. Welcome, Catherine and Shireen. Inshallah, we're going to get started right away. Thank you all for waiting so patiently. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise is due to God, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family, companions, and followers. We intend to learn and to teach, to remind and be reminded, to benefit and be benefited, to improve and be improved, to encourage holding fast to the book of God in the way of his messenger, and to call unto guidance and to direct towards good, hoping for the countenance of God and his pleasure and his proximity and his reward. And peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and his noble family and companions and followers. Ameen. Alhamdulillah, we're going to start, inshallah, with just a quick review of the assignment for last week. And if anyone would like to share what their reflection on the assignment. Actually, let's start with what was the assignment?
Was it write down spiritual pleasure and over before you see how you want to pray, like prayer Surah al-Insan?
No,
Okay.
not for last week.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Try not to delay in accordance with the practice of self-restraint.
Jazakallah khair. Perfect. MashaAllah, Sobia. So yeah, what you, brother, what you mentioned was the assignment from the week before. That was the week before's assignment. So you weren't completely wrong. But so I wanted to ask if there's any reflections from that that anyone wanted to share. How did it affect your day? How did it affect your week? If you guys were able to do it, anything you saw from that? Yeah. Mhm. Mhm, mhm.
And also I'm more focused on the therapist before the ritual.
Mhm, mhm.
So it helped with that, and also a relief because that whatever else I wanted to do, recreation and otherwise. In the beginning, it was a little strange because I was like, oh, I have to pray Isha, and then oh, I did it. And I did it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Definitely time management. More focus.
Mhm. Yeah, that's mashallah. Here's one of the reflections is that it was tough being consistent to be timely. SubhanAllah. Did you guys find it harder in the beginning and then it kind of got easier? Or was it because the nights are short, right? So it's like praying at 6:30 or 6:15 or, you know. Because sorry, the Aisha comes in at like 6:04 in San Diego. So mm-hmm. Mm. Yes, yeah, mashallah. So for those who are online, one of the things that was shared was that it just helped with the structure of the day. It helped with having more focus in prayer because it was being prayed more early. It was a sense of relief to get it done. And then later on to, you know, every time you think, oh, I need to pray, and then realizing, oh no, I've already done it. Alhamdulillah, it's already done. That there was that How do you guys think that this is something for those who are able to do it? Like you want to continue after this week, aside from the fact that it was an assignment for the week, you don't have to do it next week. You don't have to do it, period, like according to, but the benefits, right, are something that's like, wow, why didn't I do this a long time ago, Yeah.
I did it on some days.
Mm-hmm.
Like earlier, when I was doing the events. What I kind of missed was usually when I delay it, so before I sleep,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really nice thing to end it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where I just have like maybe going off throughout the day and just releasing it. And then
Mm-hmm.
prayer.
Mhm.
I kind of, I felt like this is that,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought this was like always.
You can. Mm-hmm.
Right? But I got so used to learning it late. I'm used to that feeling.
Mm. So one of the brothers mentioned that he was used to always praying right before he slept, and so he kind of missed the feeling of the last thing to do before going to sleep is prayer. And you also mentioned that, but you realize you could have also just prayed extra, like 2 rakas extra right before you went to sleep. I think in the beginning, for myself, I started by praying the fard right when it comes in, right, and then delaying the witr until right before I go to sleep, so that it did have sort of like it was couched on both ends. And then it actually switched to just praying the fard and then praying the sunnah and the witr after, just in one go, like all together. Some of that has to do with having small kids, but and nap time and bedtime and whatnot. But yeah, I think that what you just mentioned is interesting, because if you just maybe just pray the fard when it comes in, it's easy, it's light, right? It's only 4 rakas, and then do the rest of it right before you go to sleep. A sister mentions here, one morning, though it was a beautiful and miraculous experience when I woke up to the sound of the adhan in my head without any alarm. Oh, mashallah. That's really beautiful. So praying Aisha, I think this is a reflection to praying Aisha early and then being able to wake up without setting the alarm. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so I'm glad everyone had a relatively good experience with that assignment. And inshallah, today we're going to start a new surah, and this is Surah al-Insan, and I'm so excited to start this surah. Let me go to just 1 second. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا إنا خلقنا الإنسان من نطفة أمشاج نبتليه فجعلناه سميعا بصيرا إنا هديناه السبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا. So these are the verses, inshallah, we're going to discuss for today. The surah is much longer. Has there come upon a man, or has there come upon man a span of time in which he was a thing unremembered? Truly, we created man from a drop of mixed fluid that we may test him, and we endowed him with hearing, seeing. Truly, we guided him upon the way, be he grateful or ungrateful. Now, this surah, I'll start with a basic introduction to the surah itself. Most scholars, and again, there's 4 opinions on this, but the first is the one that the majority holds. The majority holds that Surah al-Insan, all of it, was revealed in Medina. So this is a Madani surah. This is in the Tafsir of Imam al-Qurtubi. And then some say all of it, this is the second opinion, all of it except for verse 24 was revealed in Medina, but verse 24 was revealed in Mecca. The third opinion is that the first 22 verses were revealed in Medina, and verses 23 through 31 were revealed in Mecca. And then there's a minority opinion, but Ibn Ajiba is one of the ones that mentions this, that the entire surah was revealed in Mecca. So there's a lot of debate about this surah. The surah takes its title from the mention of man in the first verse. هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ, human being. It is also commonly called or referred to after its first two words, هَلْ أَتَى, and also it's known as ad-dahr. هَلْ أَتَى is has there not come, and ad-dahr is endless time. Another name is al-abrar, or the pious, and this is because of the discussion for the rewards of the abrar, which span from verses 5 through 22. So what's really enjoyable, one of the things that's really enjoyable about the surah is the amount of verses that are talking about the rewards of those who are righteous. And it's very nice to read that. It's said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or it was reported that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would recite Surah al-Insan and Surah al-Sajda during the early morning Fajr prayer on Friday. So like this is what he would lead the prayer with for the community. And that's mentioned also in the tafsir of Imam Ibn Kathir. We could do that to try to practice the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ if we want to whether you're praying at home or if you're praying in the masjid, obviously whatever the imam is doing, but if you're praying at home, to read with Surah al-Insan on Friday mornings for Fajr prayer with Surah al-Sajda. And if you don't have it memorized, maybe you can just to read it in the 2 rakahs before Fajr, because you're allowed to, without disagreement, during the nafil prayer, you're allowed to hold the mushaf and read from it. So if you want to, you can do it in the nafil before the fard. Now, there's a really amazing story, and it's like shocking. Sometimes you read things from the past and you're just like, subhanAllah, like we are so far, I am so far from the examples of the greats before us. And they're really like, they take your breath away because of just how different, and it's sometimes you read the story and you're like, I believe this, like I believe this is a true story, but it's just hard to wrap your mind around it, and this is one of those stories, and this story it exists in both Sunni sources and Shia sources. So this is something that there is commonality between some of the Sunni Mufassirin and the Shia Mufassirin. And it's like some from the Shia and some from the Sunni. So, and what they said about the surah is that the verses 5 through 22, which really is a beautiful description of the rewards of the righteous, is in reference to the family of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, namely his cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein, and a story that actually happened in his own lifetime. So there's an account that's been related in the tafsir of Imam al-Qurtubi and also in the tafsir of Imam al-Alusi, both Sunni sources, that Ali radiallahu anhu, his sons Hassan and Hussein were sick. And they were very sick to the extent that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and a group of followers came to visit them. And it was suggested to Ali radiallahu anhu to make a something called a vow or a nadr to God in supplicating for their recovery. And so Ali radiallahu anhu and Fatima and they said Fizza, their house helper, vowed that if Hassan and Hussein recovered, they would fast for 3 days. And some said that it was that Hassan and Hussein also were included in this vow, that they also chose or said that they would fast. And I don't know how old they would be in the story, but it was said, according to some, that they made the same vow. And then after a while, both of them recovered. And so what they wanted to do was to fulfill their pledge, right? That they were going to fast for 3 days. So as they were themselves in dire need of food, Ali radiallahu anhu, he borrowed some barley from someone with which they were going to break their fast. And so Fatima radiallahu anha, she ground 1/3 of it into flour to bake bread. And then when they were preparing to break their fast that evening on the bread that she made, an indigent person, a poor person, came to their door and said, "Peace be upon you, the household of Muhammad. I am a needy Muslim. Please give me some food. May God bestow upon you in kind from divine sustenance." And then all of them, it is said that they all gave the poor person their share. So that night, they broke their fast only on water. And the next day, they fasted again. This time an orphan comes to the door, and they once again forfeit their bread, and ate nothing, drinking only water. On the third day, they fasted again, and it said a captive, asir, right, came to the door of their house, of their home, and they repeated their charity. On the fourth day, Ali radiallahu anhu took Hassan and Hussein with him to see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam observed them trembling with hunger, he said, "It grieves me to see you in this condition." Then he stood up and walked with them. When he arrived at their home, he found his daughter Fatima praying, and that her eyes had become sunken due to hunger, sunken into her face. And so the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was greatly affected by this. And then at this moment, Jibreel descended and tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Oh Muhammad, receive this surah. God congratulates you for having such a family." And then the surah is revealed. And so that's why some of the Mufassirin, they said verses 5 through 22 apply to righteous Muslims, but was revealed in relationship to the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who gave in this way. So yeah, you read a story like this and then you think, who would do this in our time today? You know, is there a single human being who would do this? And family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very special, truly. And when you read stories about them, you realize just how noble they were. So going to the first verse, هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. I love this verse. Since the first time I read this verse, has there come upon man a span of time in which he was a thing unremembered? Was there, and I remember even the first time I was memorizing this, just like this, the rest of the surah is beautiful, but like the opening line is like you can't move from it. You just can't. There was a time that we didn't exist. And not only that, there was a time when mankind did not exist. So it's easy for us to reflect on that when it comes to like, I see my daughter, there was a time before my daughter, she didn't exist, right? She's 3 now, or my son who's 8. So life, I remember my life before children, I remember my life before marriage, right? So there was a time where they're not even remembered because the idea of them is not even there. We can look back at our like parents' photos and things like that when they were first married or whatnot, and we were not born yet. And it's like, wow, you guys had a life before me, and that's easy to sort of reflect on in an individual level. But like, what about a time when mankind as a species was not even a thing that could be called to mind? The name didn't exist, the word didn't exist. Was there a time like that? And yes, absolutely, there was a time before us. There was a time before Adam alayhi salam. And there was a time before, the other creation of God would even think of a person or like the idea of a person. And that's a lot harder to think about. Like what was existence like before us, And I feel that when if you look at like evolution or theories of evolution and things like that, and human beings came from animals and all this stuff, it's like, you know, what was there? You almost want to ask, like, was there a time before all those animals? Right? Was there a time before planet Earth? Can you try? Then what? You know, a speck. We all came from a speck in the in. You know, so it doesn't make any sense, right? The idea that how did all of this just come about? That's why it's really hard to move on from this verse. Like, it's just, even the way that it reads in Arabic is like, you have to sit with it. So in both verses 1 and 2, man is used, and for the word insan. And there's different opinions. Some say that it refers to Adam alayhi salam. Was there a time when has there come upon man, in this case Adam alayhi salam, a span of time in which he was a thing unremembered? Then others said it was not referring just to Adam alayhi salam, but all humanity. And then some said it refers to both. It's a rhetorical question. Also indicates that there has never been a time when human beings were not known to God, even if they were not known to each other or to other creation. We were always, always, always in the knowledge of God. And it also emphasizes that there indeed was a time when man was a thing unknown, meaning completely non-existent. The verse can be translated also as there has come upon man, which is a reference to the time when Adam alayhi salam was not fully formed. And that's one of the opinions mentioned in the Tafasir of Imam Suyuti, Al-Qurtubi, Imam Al-Razi, or more generally to a time when humanity had not yet come into existence. Ayah 1, one of the reflections here from a sister is that it reminds her that of the fact that the human state is uncertain and our whole existence is uncertain. Interesting. Because we have a beginning and an end, right? So we are not independent. Our existence is dependent on the one who brought us into existence. So, yeah, this is, essentially the fact that we are the way we are it indicates God's existence. Imam Najiba has a number of things. He says the word hal can also mean qad in Arabic, which means, again, that this time has already passed, that period of time when man was forgotten. There's no acknowledgement of their existence in the first place. And he says that it can refer either to Adam alayhi salam, and it can refer to mankind. He also mentioned that, well, I think, yeah, we'll go to the next verse and then come back. We'll do that, inshallah. We'll go to the next verse. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. Truly, we created man from a drop of mixed fluid that we may test him, and we endowed him with hearing, seeing. Now, the drop of mixed fluid refers to the mixing of the male and female fluid. And this is one of several verses in the Qur'an that remind human beings of the base origins of their physical nature. That we came from a mixed drop, right? There's something quite humbling about the fact that before anything, that's all any of us were. And for one who knows this about their origin, right, especially in the time of quote unquote science, how could someone think that they more or less just evolved out of just nature, or quote unquote nature, right? Just we would never, it wouldn't make sense for us to, we can see that in anything, like if there's a seed, right, for any plant, and you plant that seed, within that little seed is the entire design of the future of that plant. And that seed came from somewhere, right? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Yes. Yes. MashaAllah. She said, uncertain in the sense that we don't know how long we will exist. So if there was a time when we didn't exist before, again, there can be a time where we don't exist again, right? If we weren't, then we don't have to be, right? And we are not eternal in that sense. Though the knowledge that we would exist was within God's eternal knowledge before we ever came into existence. So this idea of coming from a mixed drop, there's some commentary here from some of the Mufassirin. And again, one of the things that they said is going back to the creation of Adam alayhi salam, is that Imam Ibn Abbas and Qatada, they said that Adam was just basically clay, a lump of clay for 40 years before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed into him the ruh, before he had a spirit that would bring him to life. And then there's another narration, and this was also mentioned in Tafsir Imam Ibn Ajiba, and it's related by Ad-Dhahhak. He said that Adam was teen, a form of clay for the first 40 years, and then he became hama'in masnoon, which is like a black mud, a sticky black mud, that it's because its water was mixed with it, essentially, which I think is really interesting considering how much of the human being is made up of water. But it's a sticky black clay. And then the third, and he was that for 40 years. And then he was salsal, which is another form of clay, until the clay would completely dry. And it was musawwar in the sense that he was fashioned from it. And it was also narrated that, they say all of Bani Adam comes from turab. Turab is like dust. So one of the narrations said that the angels were commanded to bring from earth dust or sand from all over it. And Adam was created from that, that dirt was then, water was added. And we're talking about things that are both like, we have names for it in Arabic and in English, but what is it really? And some of the scholars, they said all of him was, he was musawwar fi sama, that he was fashioned in the heavens. So whatever we're talking about in terms of all of these different clay or whatnot, it's from the heavens, it's not from the earthly realm. Another opinion was that no, it's from the earthly realm, but it was brought up to the heavens and then it changed. So he's fashioned, and in the original clay of Adam, taken from the sand of everywhere, right, mixed with water, 40 years in one form, 40 years another form, 40 years another form. After 120 years, then Allah breathes into him the ruh, and he comes to life. That there's a narration that his clay essentially was outside the gates of paradise, and the angels would pass by him and be amazed, be in shock and amazement. But Iblis was actually afraid, because afraid of essentially his importance being replaced with this other creation. And something that's interesting in that is that the idea of the sand coming from all over the world, from every color, every kind, is that all of the different races and ethnicities in the world are brought together in Adam alayhi salam. So this is something that's in the tafsir, it's in the literature, but just to think about, when you think about dirt, clay, sand. We see it in all these different colors. We see it in white, we see it in red, we see it in brown, we see it in so many different colors. And it's like, interestingly, one of the only things that resembles human skin color, you know? To the 40 and 40 and 40. I don't know, but I thought about the same thing because there's certain numbers repeat themselves in our books. So 120, there's, you know, is a number that repeats itself. Like, I think according to one madhab, I want to say the Shafi'i school, 120 days, not years, when the fetus is in the womb, right? Like that, I believe 120 days is their cutoff mark for when a person, if there's barring any, like let's say there's a threat against the mother's life or whatever it is, the assumption that life starting after 120 days is there in one of the schools. It's not there in the other schools. The other schools say much earlier. But but just the, like, 40 is something that's repeated often. 120 is something that's repeated often. But I'm curious to know it. Some people know the significance of these numbers. There are people in the world who know them. I don't. Now, this idea that all of the different races in the world are contained within the creation of Adam alayhi salam, and then we're all the progeny of Adam and then manifested all over the world in different places. There's also the idea that within the mixed drop is a person is inheriting, right, the traits, physical features, DNA that comes from their parents. And so the person, you know, just who their mother and who the mother and father is going to have an indication on the way that the child of the mother and father are going to look. So from that, like, just whether you're looking at the drop or you're looking at the clay, I mean, it's from something that seems so, I don't want to say insignificant, but it is. I mean, we think of sand, it's dirt, you know. You think it's insignificant, or a drop, it seems insignificant, but something so great is made to come out of that. And that's a miracle. Yes, it's in the Qur'an that the ruh was placed in the fetus at 120 days of gestation. The heartbeat exists in the human being much earlier. The heartbeat is there. And so some of the scholars, they talk about life starting with the heartbeat. So that's a debate for another day. But this idea that this creation, all of it, why? So that we may test him or her. And how are they tested? We endowed them with hearing, seeing. And so the gifts of hearing and sight are part of the test. The gift of being able to hear the truth. Imam al-Ajiba says, human beings are endowed with hearing so they can hear and recognize the revelation that was sent to them by God, right? And seeing, they can see the signs of God in the world. They look around, they look at themselves, they see God's signs, and in that is enough for them to be guided. And we may use these faculties for obedience or disobedience. Those who do not use them properly they're described in the Qur'an and Surah al-A'raf and other places. They have eyes with which they see not, and they have ears with which they hear not. And so, yes, there's a physical nature to the fact that we have eyes and ears, but there's also the metaphysical quality of, can you benefit from that? From what you see? Do you benefit from what you hear? And so that which comes from a drop of mixed fluid, right, is created for the purpose of being tested and tried. So one of the commentaries said the first verse, man, describes Adam alayhi salam, and the second verse describes all of his progeny. And this idea of having ears and eyes, but a person doesn't benefit from them. That's where the assignment's going to come from for this week. So we have, alhamdulillah, we benefit from hearing, we benefit from what we see. And, or we try to benefit from what we see. The hearing, Imam Ibn Ajib talks specifically about, he calls it adillatul as-sam'iyya wal-aqliyya, which is like the evidences that appeal to us through, because it's revelation. So God is telling us about the unseen. We could not have known about it except that we had to get notified about it, right? So like the stories of the prophets. I can't wake up one day and just know the story of Adam alayhi salam on my own. That's adillatu sam'iyya. That's the evidence for that is something that gets revealed and passed down to me. And then aqliya is my that which my intellect can acknowledge even without revelation, right? So like it's logical, it's rational. So both of them, we have both that which is given to us through clear revelation, and then we also have the capacity, the intellectual capacity to use our minds, our intellect, to for that to agree with us and for us to agree with that, to agree with it. That's what the faculties are made for, right? For guidance. These faculties that are made for guidance and to draw us closer to God can also draw us further from God and can be causes to be misguided, right? And Imam Ghazali talks a lot about this when he discusses like the inroads to the heart, or Imam Ibn al-Qayyim also talk about this, that our ears, they're like an inroad to the heart being a fortress. Our eyes are an inroad to the heart, and our heart is a fortress. And so at each inroad, there needs to be a guard, standing guard, to make sure what goes in is good and not what goes in is bad. And one of the ways that we can train ourselves to guard things, like, guard ourselves, because especially where we are and how the world has become, this would have been, I think, a lot easier in a previous eras. I think it was just a lot easier when I was a kid compared to the way it is now. But when I was thinking about what is the biggest sort of invasion of our faculties in our time today, it would be our phones. Like something that your eyes land on, something you wasn't intending to land on. I think Facebook sent me an ad once, and it was Facebook themselves, or what is it called? Meta, right? It was garbage. And I complained about it, right? I wanted to block it and then report it. And I'm like, I'm reporting it to themselves. Like they're the ones who put this on my feed. And no, I don't look at stuff like this. So this was a deliberate, like experiment. How are people going to respond to this? And so a part of me was like, boycott the whole thing, just take it off. But maybe just out of like a form of fasting, right? A form of fasting can, it's always good to do intermittent, social media fast, I feel. Because if you see the documentary, The Social Dilemma, it's not a neutral tool. It's not neutral. It's designed to create an addiction, right? And it's designed to, like, for the Muslim, a part of our faith is minding our own business, right? Like that's a big part of our faith. It's just mind your own business. But it's like, wait, so-and-so shared their Thanksgiving dinner, like that looks really interesting. They had that, and it's not that, is it so haram, but it's like how much of your like mental space is going to get used on garbage. Like it's literally, there's no benefit in it whatsoever. So one thing I thought of was, inshallah, for us is to try to do a 7-day social media fast. We can see how many days we last. What was that? This was the homework assignment, is a 7-day social media fast, but there's a replacement thing. So this is out of, they say, takhliya, like remove what's harmful, and then tahliya is add that which is good or beneficial. So the tahliya is to spend instead some time in your day, if you can, a little bit of time in the day, even if it's like, because people, when you open, the average amount of time that a person spends when they just flip open the social media is 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Just flip it open. 20 minutes goes like it was never there, right? Why is it so much harder to just sit down and read Qur'an for 20 minutes? Or even think about Qur'an for 20 minutes? Like you don't read 5 verses. You don't have to read 20 verses. Read 5 verses and just really think about them. ponder them, reflect on them. So the replacement is to spend some time, inshallah, with Qur'an. And you can do that however it's easiest for you to connect to it. If you like to listen to a qari, a reciter, read, you can do that. If you like to reflect and read English translation and think about it, you can do that. If you want to read Surah al-Insan every day for 7 days, however, but it's a 7-day Facebook fast with Qur'an. Let's see if how that goes for all of us, inshallah. I don't know how many of us are going to last, but it's a good indication.
But Facebook actually has some points that like looking back that you cannot remember. So yeah, I'm so mad. I don't want to get
Yeah. It would be honestly really nice if there was a platform that was like Facebook that Muslims invented, and Muslims could just join it and it doesn't have any ads. It could just, organizations can post their event programs and things like that, but just something that would be purely, even then you have to be careful, honestly, because it is just being in a room full of people all the time, which is not what we should be doing all the time anyways. But it's still at least having the idea of, I'm not going to see anything wrong. I'm not going to hear anything, that's offensive. Hopefully, inshallah. So yeah, that's where the assignment comes from for this week. All right. Inna hadaynahu as-sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. Truly we guided him or her upon the way, be he grateful or ungrateful. Imam Ibn Ajiba mentions that we clarified the way to God for everyone through revelation and through evidences. And this is whether or not they are thankful and acknowledge it, or are ungrateful and do not acknowledge it. But we as in God, this is the royal we have clarified the way regardless. No one can say that that there was not a way to God that was given to mankind on earth. God has, and he says he did it through revelation, through prophets, through messengers, and also in signs that they have within themselves about the existence of God. It is also very similar to in Surah al-Balad, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ عَيْنَيْنِ وَلِسَانًا وَشِفَتَيْنِ وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. Did we not make for him 2 eyes, a tongue, and 2 lips, and guide him upon the 2 highways? Right? There's 2 ways to, you can choose the right way, the high road, the good road, or the wrong one. And both passages indicate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides guidance for those who have the eyes to see and ears to hear. And each person is thus responsible for the state of their own soul. The methods or means that God gave us for guidance is through the human intellect, again, aql, through the messengers that God sends, through the many signs the many signs that are mentioned in Revelation, as well as the signs that are in the created order, and even within the human being themselves, the fact that they came from a single mixed drop. Grateful or ungrateful indicates that the person is either quote unquote happy or wretched. What does that mean, happy or wretched? It's that they are a believer or a disbeliever. In Surah Al-Kahf, Allah mentions, وَقُلْ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ. It is the truth from your Lord. So whosoever will, let them believe, and whosoever will, let them disbelieve. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Right, so the truth is there, it exists, it's been revealed. There's signs for it exists. Even the sign within a person's being, that they didn't just know the truth, they witnessed it. I was just listening to a program today where this pre-eternal realm, when we were gathered around the throne of God and God asked us, am I not your Lord? And all of mankind says, Bala shahidna, like, yes, we all witness this, right? And the word that's used is, it doesn't say bala alamna, like we know this, arafna, that we acknowledge this. It didn't say fahimna, we understand this. No, they said we witness this. Every soul has witnessed already. Every soul on earth has already witnessed that they have a Lord and one God. And that's in there, that's still in them. The soul has that within them. And if anyone wants to use their intellect, use the faculties, explore the revelation, to come to the conclusion of where did I come from? That burning question does exist. And so can you fill your eyes and ears with other things so you don't think about it? Yeah, a lot of people do. And it's usually the immediate, right? The things that are the next game, the next movie, the next activity, the next plaything. And even Muslims fall into this. It's not just people who are not Muslim. Muslims fall into the exact same thing. The urgent, the seemingly urgent and immediate, taking precedent over the important that is eternal. Yes, shahidna, like we all saw to some extent. The soul saw, the soul witnessed it. The idea is, mashallah, they said, so fast 7 days continuously or daily sunrise to sunset. It's to fast 7 days continuously. Yeah, sunset for us is like at 4 something, so it's not much of a fast anyways. But from social media, but it'd be 7 days. If you guys want to start, if you're really afraid of what that's like, try 3 days. Right, like the family of the Prophet ﷺ, they essentially ended up not eating food, period, for 3 days straight. They gave in charity instead. So we're not starving our bodies for 3 days even. We're just fasting from social media, inshallah, for 7 days. And with that, inshallah, we will close. We can end with dua. I'll cover the spiritual sort of metaphysical commentary of Imam al-Haji, but about these verses starting next week. Like I'll start the next session with that. But for today, inshallah, we will close. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma wafiqna lima tuhibbuhu wa tarda, waj'alna min abidika su'ada, wa amitna ala kalimat al-huda. علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. O God, give us success to attain what you love and are pleased with. Make us amongst your felicitous servants. Allow us to die on the statement of guidance. Teach us what will benefit us and give us the success to act upon what you have taught us. Make that in which we are engaged pure and devoted to your noble face. Ameen, O Lord of the worlds. O God, make this gathering of ours a gathering enveloped in mercy, and our parting thereafter, a parting of our sins purged and forgiven, not one of us wretched or deprived. And peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his noble family and companions and followers. Ameen. Thank you all. And inshallah, just one more thing is Saturday, there is an event here with Dr. Heather. Please RSVP if you plan to come, just because we're going to be doing like a circle and we want to know who's going to be in attendance. And then not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after, we are doing we're doing a year-end dinner, and then we're going to go on a sort of like a winter break, our annual sort of programming break. So December, I believe it's December the 19th. Inshallah, we'll have if you guys can RSVP for that as well, so we have a good head count for food. So thank you so much. It's going to be in the courtyard, inshallah. Okay, assalamu alaikum.